Okay, so this is going to be the last Gallatin County history video. There's a lot of history. I mean, there's a lot of current news, right? So, whatever current, if you think about the current news, and then that's always been like that. It's always been like that, right? So there's a shit ton of news, and really it depends on what people pick and what they don't pick. And people pick the most interesting things when they go throughout history. Usually, one event or one person kind of captures someone's attention, and then it all coalesces around the event or the person. So there's a must talk American, like the Spanish. They was treating Germans the same way. So this is August 23rd, 1918. And it says, Warsaw, Kentucky, August 17th. There's one rule in Warsaw, which is never trespassed. It was made for the benefit of visitors and is posted on a prominent corner of the courthouse in big black letters. And it says, no German language talked in this town. If you can't talk United States, don't talk at all. Big black letters. If you can't talk United States, not English, United States, right? So they're taking the language. But yeah, it just kind of shows the anti-German sentiments that was going on here in even in Warsaw, Northern Kentucky. Here's an interesting article written in a letter to the Louisville Courier-Journal for Ed Lampkin, January 13th, 1931. And it says, bully for Gallatin County. And we've been reading quite a lot the past few months about this depression. Hard times have been struck this nation. And it's true some parts of the country, but I actually believe part of the talk's not true. Some folks talk hard times because they hear others and finally get to believe it. As we say, this depression may be in some parts of the country, and we believe it is. But we start out to tell you, Warsaw, Gallatin County, smallest county in Kentucky, more money's been paid out of Gallatin County in the past 2 years than any time in 50 years in the same length of time. More men have been employed in the county, have spent more money. Merchants have sold more goods for cash. People taking more trips. Have bought more automobiles, gasoline, have gone to more shows in the cities, have spent more money foolishly, have gone better dressed and apparently happier, have talked more hard times and knew they were lying than at any other time in history. It is true we have some citizens that need assistance, but we always had them and always will, and we always assist them. But we do not need and never have needed any outside assistance and hope we never will. Our country has never been bankrupt and unknown. So far we have taken care of our poor, and we believe we always shall be able to do so. We believe if folks would quit talking in hard times, playing possum, they'd soon forget about the depression. It's true our farmers had a hard time last summer on account of a drought, but our tobacco came out wonderfully. Some of it has been sold, brought a good price, money collected, most of it spent and enjoyed. We say again, there may be hard times in other sections, but it's not appeared in the smallest and best county in Kentucky. They had a similar fucking article about this in the paper, you know, right after the Great Recession. Great Recession happened in 2008. We about blow up the whole fucking planet, you know, about collapse everything. Some of these young, poor countries are still reeling from the effects, having bread riots and shit, grain, rice riots. But the paper in the Gallatin County News is like, we're not going to participate in the recession. We're not going to participate as if you could just choose not to do it. This is 2 years after the Great Depression, right? And they said they weren't feeling any effects. So I think it's bullshit. I think rich, prosperous, successful people are the ones that dictate the public opinion, and they were overshadowing the poor. Still happens today. Thursday, Frank B. Kirby of Carrollton, accompanied by attorney James B. Duncan of that city, came here to secure additional evidence in the claim of his father, John W. Kirby, deceased, against federal government for $1,200 for false arrest, right? So they're saying during the War of Rebellion, bitter feeling was engendered between North and South. Mr. Kirby was sheriff of Gallatin County. Dr. C.L. Ferris was provost marshal of the federal forces. C.L. Ferris. John T. Morrow was in the Confederate Army and became detached from his company and came to Gallatin near Carson. Ferris, hearing the fact, took a detachment of soldiers, went to where Morrow was and shot him to death. John Baker, a farmer living near where Morrow was killed, was accused of feeding the Confederate, and he too was killed. So they're just, if you're a Confederate and you're in a soldier, they're going to fucking murder you and then murder the people that was helping you feed you. I bet the Civil War is probably fucking crazy, man. Motherfuckers probably could just shoot motherfuckers and just say, hey, it was over the war, right? So they killed John Baker and they killed John T. Morrow. Grand jury indicted Ferris for murder, and the circuit court judge gave Sheriff Kirby a warrant for the arrest of Ferris. In the meantime, he had left, but had learned he was coming up the river with the U.S. mails. Sheriff Kirby stopped the boat here to get this man, and for this, the sheriff was arrested and thrown into prison for interfering with the mails, but after 2 trials was acquitted, hence the damages. It also stated that the claim is legitimate, will be paid when further proof is secured. So they go to, Sheriff Kirby goes to arrest him, but instead of being arrested, he actually gets arrested. He stops the boat, and then they arrest him, and then they throw him in prison. So again, it's just really who's stronger, who can get the other person in handcuffs first, right? You can't stop the mail. How dare you stop the mail? Well, you have a murderer on board. Well, what do you mean? So just kind of like the whole Boone County versus Gallatin County with Clarence Davis. That was sort of a struggle that was going on between 2 parties. There was also another Gallatin County thing where one cop arrested another cop, right? So really, if you're the one that can put the handcuffs on the other, you're the fucking badass, right? You're the fucking man. Duck hunting when wild ducks were plentiful. An illustration of how plentiful ducks and other wild fowl were many years ago in Kentucky is contained in the story of a Gallatin County man 60 years ago. Army rifles, this is 1928, so it'll be 1925. 60 years ago, Army rifles were common enough, but there were not many guns on the farms, and the boys had to resort to other methods of catching small game. Ducks and geese descended to the farm ponds in the Ohio River bottoms in great numbers. The problem was how to catch them. Big sugar gourds were then common, and the boys threw quantities of these into the ponds. When the ducks were accustomed to the bobbing gourds, the boys hollowed out a couple and slipped them over the heads, leaving holes for observation and breathing. Then the wily young hunters waded neck deep into the water and waited. When the surface of the pond was black with ducks, all the boys had to do was reach out under the water and grab a duck by the legs, pull him under, and decapitate him. This was repeated until there was enough for the table and neighbors. The modern duck hunter might find this poor sport, but standing in cold water for an hour or more was a job worth a reward. The gourd method required as much ingenuity as the decoy blind pump gun method. The boys of that day, of course, contributed their part toward depleting the game supply, and before long, ducks and geese were scarce articles. Since the enactment of the federal migratory bird law, however, ducks are again populating the river bottom ponds, and if the policy of draining great marshlands is discouraged, wild ducks and geese will continue to form a food supply for Americans for centuries to come. Hogs in the street. It's 1871. Mr. Editor, Citizen and Philip have had their say about Warsaw, and before they say much more, I desire to throw a few remarks merely expressing my candid opinion in regard to a few things pertaining to our town. Hogs. Everybody knows that we have an abundance of live pork running at large upon our streets, and that each one is a plantation of itself for growing and raising that industrious insect surnamed the flea. Visitors often forget the name of Warsaw and call it Hog Town. Cincinnati was Porkopolis. Inquire why the authorities don't exclude hogs from the streets. If everybody was made a martyr by flea bites as I've been, I've no doubt but live pork could be very scarce in Warsaw. Now, I think a majority of the citizens are in favor of at least excluding these animals from the streets, but if one allows his pork to run at large, the balance of those who own hogs cannot be expected to keep theirs up. A few mean, mischievous hogs will root up yards, gardens, fences, pavements, and shrubbery, and while these are at large, people think they might as well have a few hogs out to live on the public as anybody. It's a shame, however, that some people are not able to feed and take care of their pork themselves, turning them out to feed in their neighbors' gardens, root up their yards, shrubbery, and fences beside filling their house and lot with fleas. I think they should have at least some consideration for the ladies, for they usually about the house more than men suffer more from the tormenting insect. I also think that common decency would teach them to keep their hogs in the proper place, the pen or pasture, and common pride would teach them that they can with as much pride turn their families as well as hogs to feed upon others. Now, I, for one, would like to have our trustees take some action in this matter, and if they do not feel like taking the responsibility upon themselves, I think they would at least do an act that would leave the question to a vote of the people. This is ECCE, E-C-C-E. There's two descriptions of Glencoe and Sparta, and actually I found out that Walnut Valley had a post office, and Walnut Valley used to be called Ryle. Okay, so Walnut Valley, that was on the side of the county that I lived on. Used to have a post office. I don't even know what the post office would have been on Walnut Valley or Walnut Lick. So That's where I was wondering, where's Ryle from? What the fuck is Ryle? What is Etheridge? There's Etheridge, there's Ryle. What are these? There's cities, there's towns. So you have Glencoe, population 350. This is, I don't know, many years ago, 100 years ago maybe. It doesn't have a date on it, and I don't feel like checking it. But the per acre, there was about $100 per acre of improved farms. Unimproved farms is $60 an acre. Population is 350. The river is Eagle Creek. Railroads was the L&N, Louisville, Nashville Road. The general description of the country was hilly, limestone soil, tobacco, and tomatoes. So limestone, there's still, there's a big ass limestone plant actually in Gallatin County still. And there's 2 state banks. There's Dorman and Garvey hotels. So 2 hotels, 2 banks, 1 public school, 2 churches, a Baptist and a Christian school, and they had flour mills, tobacco warehouses, livestock, and shipping. So Glencoe was a hustle and bustle town at one point. Sparta, but I mean, about the same population as today, only 100 less. There's 350, now there's 250. Sparta is doing a little bit better, I think. Maybe 200, but they have 100 population during this time. The railroad was Louisville and Nashville Railroad. Principal crops was tobacco and wheat. Price per acre, $75 per acre of improved farms. Unimproved was $45, so it was cheaper land than Sparta. They had 1 state bank there. They had the Exchange Hotel and the Sparta Hotel. They had 1 public school. They had a Baptist and a Christian church. The manufacturing plants, there was a flour mill, woodworking plants, horse, mule, hide, pelt, wool, produce, livestock, shipping. So that's what was going on in Sparta during that time. I don't know. I guess I can go back and just kind of say like some of the things I was seeing. This Northern Kentucky Views is just, it's amazing, man, the way they got this set up, and there's so many fucking things. Links and miscellany is my favorite part. There's Sugar Creek, there's Warsaw, 50s and 60s, 70s, aerials, banks, businesses, church, courthouse square. Sparta, they had, street scenes. You got a tragedy on the Ohio River. There's a 1937 flood that affected Gallatin County, Gallatin folks, Gallatin restaurants, Hub Ferguson. That was a sheriff that was murdered that never was solved. Hub Ferguson was just straight up killed, right? And there's some street scenes of Glencoe in the 50s and 60s. Hub Ferguson is June 18th, 1954. There's only 2 photographs of the man. He supposedly came across like some marijuana fields, and then they murdered him. So the map of where the body was found, they found in Eagle Creek. Eagle Creek is where they found his body. They had the Commonwealth attorney who was trying to figure out who had did it and what had happened. Not the most popular man in the county, but not the least disliked. He was somewhat of a loner. Roy Wheeler's site on the Ferguson story. Roy D. Wheeler. I thought like I heard a Wheeler had something to do with it. Friday night, they had farm chores done and going to town for groceries. Mom and Dad let us roller skate at least once a week. My sister and I skated and were preparing to go home. It was about 10:15, I remember. So they had fucking skates. There was fucking roller skates back then. In where? Warsaw? In Sparta. So they could go skating in Sparta. The lights had come out in town. There had been somewhat a gunshot or 2 in the area. Hearing a gunshot in Sparta was not uncommon. Mom and Dad walked to skating rink to get my sister and I. The rink was only 150 feet where the car was parked. Ralph, don't hit this drunk lying in the ground in the car. There's a man on the ground with tanner brown pants, a white shirt, a pair of gold-rimmed glasses hanging on his face. Appeared to be totally passed out. 2 men wrestling with him, tried to get him loaded into the back seat of a car. As we left town, Mom said, that man looked like Hub Ferguson. It was unlikely to impossible that Sheriff Ferguson would be laying on the ground, Sparta drunk. We got home, which was about 2.5 miles. We always had a snack when we got home. Skating, we were sitting at the table. Mom said, it really did look like Hub Ferguson lying back there. We finished our snack and retired for the evening. I mean, they took him and put him in the fucking trunk. Oh, put him in the back seat of the car. Sheriff Hub Ferguson was born in 1890 in the county, son of William Ferguson, Lula Sanders. Not too many people knew he'd been married. Sheriff's car was found not far from his home. And then they found his body. Who knows what happened, right? Glencoe, the 50s and 60s. So yeah, check it out. Northern Kentucky views, links and miscellany. There's actually a couple spotty things that I wanted to get a hold of if I can Yeah, okay, so the Louisville Westport Railroad will soon be completed in 3 months. If the people along the river could be made to understand their own interests and be put through to Covington by this time next year, but you might as well undertake to plow up hill in a bobtail rat tied to a shingles to make some people see anything 2 feet from their nose, and people along this route have got this nearsighted disease badly from the indifferent way they act about this matter, which is so much importance to every man on the route.